Guys, welcome to the I Love CVille Show. My name is Jerry Miller. Thank you kindly for joining us on a Tuesday afternoon. We are live in Charlottesville, across the Commonwealth, the country, and the world on the I Love CVille Network, Ting Fiber Internet, the good people behind this network, and Skooma Boutique Dispensary on the Charlottesville Downtown Mall, our newest presenting partner of the I Love CVille Show. Skooma Boutique Dispensary next to Rapture on the Downtown Mall, doing things right, doing things transparently, holding their partners accountable with certificates of authenticity. Skooma Boutique Dispensary. If you want some knowledge on the booming and emerging CBD market, you can get it at Skooma. A lot we're going to cover on today's program, boys and girls. I saw a spaceship launch into space, a spaceship funded by a billionaire, a spaceship that had said billionaire on it. I saw a spaceship this morning go into space with the oldest astronaut ever to go into space and the youngest astronaut ever to go into space. I saw a spaceship this morning launch into space with the brother of a billionaire sitting shotgun. Now I'm watching the press conference of the spaceship going into space, and Jeff Bezos is wearing a cowboy hat. Boys and girls, welcome to 2021. We will talk about that on the I Love CVille Show. I'm going to dot the I's and cross the T's on the auction that took place at Albemarle Courthouse at Fashion Square Mall, the auction that took place on the Albemarle County Courthouse that involved Fashion Square Mall. I Love CVille, the only outlet to film the auction from start to finish. If you'd like to see that auction from start to finish, it is archived on ilovecville.com right now. It's about 25 minutes long. I watched it in person. I found it exhilarating, enthralling, exciting. This auction had a lender on a phone from a different state and had a citizen here in Central Virginia, Richard B. Hewitt, going toe-to-toe, fighting tooth and nail, squabbling, beefing, $100,000 increments, all the way north of $20 million. In fact, we'll give you the exact number in a matter of moments. I want to dot the I's and cross the T's from the Fashion Square Mall auction. The lender buys it for $20.2 million. That coming up in a matter of moments. I'm going to ask you this question. Do we need a convention center in Albemarle County or the city of Charlottesville? I posted this question on the I Love CVille Network yesterday, and boys and girls, it absolutely went viral. I'd say it was split 50-50 of the convention center, 50 in favor, 50 against. Those in favor see the incremental revenue benefits that come with the convention center and Fortune 500 companies utilizing that convention center during the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday work week. Here in Central Virginia, we have no problem attracting tourists to hotels and restaurants, retail shops, breweries and wineries, cideries and other small businesses on the weekends. People flock and flood to Central Virginia on the weekends, Charlottesville and Albemarle County in particular. However, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and most of Thursday, the hotels have vacancies, the restaurants have open tables, the retail outlets are asking for customers to come in, the breweries, wineries, and cideries doing whatever they can to get customers in the door. Can the convention center drive midweek business, and can it be done strategically in a way that it does not polarize the population that is opposed to more growth in our backyard? There are three constants in life: change, taxes, and death. We're going to have change in Charlottesville. We're going to have change in Albemarle County. We're going to have death in Charlottesville. We're going to have death in Albemarle County. And we're going to have taxes in Charlottesville. And we're going to have taxes in Albemarle County. Albeit, if you elect me to the Board of Supervisors, I will prioritize incremental tax revenue so you, me, citizens, don't have to carry more of that tax burden. However, I regress. Let me get back on topic. The convention center topic, I'm going to do a deep dive on in a matter of minutes on this program. I'm also going to recap the Second Amendment rights issue that is floating around town. The Albemarle County Board of Supervisors, no secret, 6 Democrats, in very backroom dealing fashion, is proposing an ordinance prohibiting firearms, guns, from buildings, parks, and community centers owned or used by Albemarle for government purposes. Second Amendment enthusiasts, and we should all be enthusiasts of the amendments. We should all be enthusiasts of the Constitution. I understand when the Constitution was written, we didn't have machine guns. And machine guns are a different story than firearms in totality. A registered gun on your hip with a right to carry permit is very different than an automatic machine gun, semi-automatic machine gun. You get my drift. I don't know the exact terminology. But a machine gun and a gun on your hip when you're licensed to carry it and you have a permit are 2 very different things. Tomorrow, Steve Harvey, who ran for Albemarle County Board of Supervisors Whitehall District in 2009, he lost narrowly to Ann Malik. Ann Malik's, 4 terms on the Board of Supervisors? Why there are no term limits, that's a topic for a different show. I think undoubtedly there should be term limits in the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors and in Charlottesville City Council. That way individuals do not get punch drunk with power. Steve Harvey's coming on the program tomorrow. He is a former military man, helicopter pilot, now Charlottesville and Albemarle County and Central Virginia community stakeholder, and he's going to share his perspective, and he's offered some already, which I will get to, on why the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors are trampling on our Second Amendment rights. That topic on today's program. A peaceful protest is scheduled for tomorrow during the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors meeting. A couple of other topics out of the notebook. Midwinter, the expectation now for vaccinations for children 12 years old and under. This was a gut punch for many of us that have children 12 and under. Our little boy is 3. There's nothing my wife and I wanted more, especially her, than having our little guy vaccinated before he goes 5 days a week to preschool. Is it preschool? Do you go to preschool at 3? Is it daycare? You get my drift. He's going to school 5 days a week, 9 to 12. Nothing we wanted more than having our little guy vaccinated. Now that's not going to happen till midwinter at the earliest. We'll talk about that on the I Love CVille Show. We'll talk new construction, home sales, and building permits coming to a screeching halt. And Alex Urpí, the CEO of Emergent Financial Services, will join us in about 15 minutes or so to talk all things finance, including trading on margin, including stagflation, including whether we are on a bubble, approaching a bubble from a housing standpoint. It's no secret. Housing prices are through the roof, higher than they've ever been. Higher than they've ever been, housing prices. And we'll talk rates with Alex Urpí, who's got a big, beautiful brain, the CEO of Emergent Financial Services. The first topic of today's program has got to be the auction I saw firsthand. There were about 40 of us on a humid and hot Friday afternoon, last Friday, on the steps of Albemarle County Courthouse. We gathered under a tree in front of the courthouse. It offered little shade and protection from the aggressive Virginia sun. We waited with a 1 p.m. arrival until an auctioneer who had no ties to the area, and how we knew that is his pronunciation of Albemarle and Rio Road. When you call Rio Road, you know you're not from this area. When you butcher Albemarle County and call it Albemarle, you know you're not from this area. So at about 1:07 p.m., 40 people huddled together under a tree, the Virginia aggressive, human and burning sun beating down on her epidermis. We huddle around the auctioneer, who's got a cell phone on speaker. He has the lender, and all he called them was the lender. We know now it's a J.P. Morgan subsidiary or affiliate. The lender's on speakerphone via cell phone. Mr. Richard B. Hewitt, wearing a tie the color of gold bricks, in a shirt pressed in iron in pristine condition, in Ray-Ban, Wayfair sunglasses, khakis without a single wrinkle on them, and Italian loafers so nice and so fine, George Clooney would be jealous of them. I sit there, cell phone, camera, rolling in hand, shooting from auctioneer to Richard B. Hewitt, from Richard B. Hewitt to auctioneer. The bid starts just over $3 million. Mr. Richard B. Hewitt starts with $3,100,000. The auctioneer quickly corrects Mr. Hewitt and says, "We will not be increasing in $100 increments, sir." The lender responds with $3,100,000. And from $3,100,000 all the way until $20,200,000, I watched a live auction of epic, exhilarating, and exciting proportions. The auctioneer says, we got $20.2 million going once, $20.2 million going twice. And before the out-of-town auctioneer could say $20.2 million going final time, Richard B. Hewitt, in his cleanly pressed white button-down shirt, in his khakis without a wrinkle, and his beautiful Italian loafers with his Ray-Bans on his freshly manicured face, he says to the 40 of us huddled around the little shade from this tree at the steps of Albemarle County Courthouse, "I think the lender made a mistake." And at that moment, the auctioneer says, "Sold for $20,200,000 on a human Friday at the steps of the Albemarle County Courthouse. The purchaser, a subsidiary of J.P. Morgan." Now, we have Fashion Scare Mall at the intersection of Rio, not Rio, Mr. Auctioneer, but Rio Road and Route 29 in the hands of a J.P. Morgan subsidiary. What they're going to do, only time will tell. What they're going to do, only a few guys know. What they're going to do, we can only prognosticate, crystal ball, and guess. Is it going to be a convention center? Will it be back and converted to a mall again? Massaged and improved into a shopping experience again? Will it become affordable housing? Hell, will it be torn down altogether and something new built from scratch? One of the gentlemen at this auction, a man who does a lot of commercial real estate, not my friend Keith Smith, but another man who I'm not going to use his name. I've done some business with him and his wife also in real estate. I'll leave it at that, because if I say the man's in real estate and the wife's in real estate, very quickly you can start whittling down the couples that are in real estate here in Central Virginia, especially with the caveat, the man does a lot of commercial. I'm not going to give you any more tips. I go and talk to the gentleman who does a lot of the commercial real estate, and before the auction starts, I said, "Is anything going to happen here?" And he said, "You know what, Jerry? I think it will." There's 50 years left on this lease. And that 50-year lease has a lot of value considering the visibility and the traffic that goes by Fashion Square Mall. So I'm like, wow, maybe we'll see some activity. And boy, activity did we see. $20,200,000 over the course of 24 minutes. I'd never seen anything like that in my entire life. Immediately I reflected, immediately I thought, immediately I considered a number of points. A, there is a hell of a lot of money in this area. And we all know it. But when you see one individual, Richard B. Hewitt, who owns Seminole Square Shopping Center, one of his subsidiaries purchased the J.C. Penney building, when you see this guy increasing his bids in $100,000 increments, all the way to $20,150,000 before he steps aside, you realize in very tangible and palpable terminology how wealthy this community truly is. $20,150,000 for Richard B. Hewitt was like $2,000 for you and I. Second point I considered, what the hell is this lender going to do with this? Third point I considered, does the lender have a purchaser or a strategic partner already in mind to do a deal with, considering they bought an antiquated, derelict, crumbling structure for $20,200,000? You spend that kind of jack, that kind of coin, that kind of green, that kind of money, that kind of loot, that kind of moolah, you often have plans in place before you make offers of the $20 million variety. So I started speculating, I started wondering, I started crystal balling. What the hell are these people going to do with a mall that's seen better days? A mall that's 41 years old. A mall that has a vacancy rate that would leave any landlord demoralized, depressed, and disgusted. Then I asked myself, if I had my druthers, if I had a magic wand, and I was able to say, your wish is my command to someone. And I asked the Central Virginia community, Central Virginia, Charlottesville, and Albemarle County, your wish is my command. What do you want Fashion Square Mall to evolve into? I thought immediately of affordable housing. Affordable housing is on the tip of everyone's tongue. I thought immediately of a dynamic and robust sports complex that could be utilized and leveraged by the jurisdiction to drive incremental tax dollars so you and I, the citizens, do not assume even more of the tax burden associated with running said municipality. And then, my friends, viewers and listeners, supporters of this network, I started brainstorming the convention center idea. Fashion Square Mall has close proximity to the airport. I'd say on a good day about 15 minutes away. Fashion Square Mall has close proximity to the University of Virginia. I say on a good day about 15 minutes away. Fashion Square Mall has close proximity to 29 North and South, a major traffic corridor. Close proximity to the downtown mall, your epicenter of restaurants, fun, enjoyment, and activity, about 15 minutes away. Hell, Fashion Square Mall is close to just about everything in the city of Charlottesville and Albemarle County. My mind starts racing. The entrepreneur in me starts thinking. And I start brainstorming concepts. Damn, a convention center, Fortune 500 companies, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Damn, a convention center, Fortune 500 companies during the week to support our small businesses, our mom and pops, our restaurants, our retail outlets, our breweries, our wineries, and our cideries. Damn, a convention center, driving hotel bookings on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, when rooms are empty, vacant, and eager to be filled. Damn, a convention center for a world-class city. We bill ourselves as a world-class city. Wouldn't that make sense? I put the convention center idea on the I Love CVille Network. Yesterday, it goes viral across every social media platform possible. Back of the napkin, 50% in favor. Back of the napkin, 50% against. Those against, same logic that goes with growth. We don't want Charlottesville and Albemarle County to turn into Fredericksburg or Northern Virginia. We're tired of change. Too many people are coming to this area. Charlottesville and Albemarle County are already a Zoom town. Big city people are coming here with big bags of money and scooping up our real estate and working from ISPs in their basement, and they're living on their big city salary, and they're driving up the cost of living in our backyard. I get it. The unknown, change, is a scary proposition. But one of the things I know for certain, in life, change, death, and taxes will happen whether we want them or not. Change, death, and taxes we will face no matter our resistance to change, death, and taxes. Convention center at the footprint of Fashion Square Mall. Airport close, UVA close, downtown close, major traffic corridors and thoroughways close. One of the few items missing from our ecosystem, our economic ecosystem, one of the few, a convention center and a sports complex that can be leveraged for sports tourism. Both ideas, my friends, my viewers and listeners, will drive incremental tax revenue to the jurisdiction, which relieves some of the tax burden from our shoulders. That is the type of thinking we need from local government. And unfortunately, that's the type of thinking that has been missing from local government since I arrived here in 2000 as a doe-eyed, bright-eyed, somewhat precocious, undeniably mischievous 18-year-old to attend the University of Virginia. Okay. Next topic, before we get to Alex Urpí in a couple minutes here. Alex, gosh, it's 1:01. I'm sorry, buddy. We're going to get to you in a matter of moments. Tomorrow, the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors, in very clandestine fashion, is going to vote on a proposed ordinance which would prohibit firearms. Firearms are guns from buildings, parks, and community centers owned or used by Albemarle County. Steve Harvey, who ran for Albemarle County Board of Supervisors in 2019 and narrowly lost to Ann Malik, who I believe is a 4-term incumbent, immediately reached out to me and said, "Did you see this?" He's a veteran, a former helicopter pilot, a father and a husband, and now a civically engaged realtor on the Denise Ramey real estate team. Steve Harvey is going to come on the show tomorrow. He will sit right here. He's going to make a big-time announcement. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag now. It's his announcement to make. And he's also going to explain the protest that will transpire and take place tomorrow during the Board of Supervisors meeting. He sends this message on LinkedIn. "Jerry, this is purely a political maneuver by our Board of Supervisors. They are restricting constitutionally protected rights for no other reason than they have the power to do so. We have had precisely 0 firearm-related incidents on our county properties for decades, if not longer. Firearm crimes in our forests and parks are unheard of. This is big government mentality at its absolute worst. Now, I'm going to take a little stab at this myself. I'm going to take a shot at this. That cracked myself up. I'm going to take a shot at this gun issue myself. There's a huge difference between a handgun on someone's hip and an individual who has the permit or a right to carry, a license to carry said handgun. And there's a huge difference between a big-ass machine gun where the perception is this thing can mow some people down very quickly. I'm a libertarian at heart, fiscally conservative, socially liberal. That's me in a nutshell. The right to carry a firearm when done legally and above board is undeniably the definition of the Second Amendment. When government starts intruding upon our rights, your antennas, your red flags, and your internal subconscious should start saying, hey, what the hell is going on here? And whether or not you're pro-gun or anti-gun, that's not necessarily the issue. The issue is government intruding on your rights. Because once government starts doing that, when does government stop? Or how far does government go? My little boy is adorable. And my wife loves to say, it's a darn good thing they make these children cute and adorable. Because if they were not cute and adorable, and she stops talking, and my kid and I were walking on eggshells at that point. My little boy, we give him an inch, he takes a mile. Sure, son, you can stay up 10 extra minutes past bedtime. 45 minutes later, he's negotiating for more time. Sure, son, you can have 2 Swedish fish because we know how much you like them. 7 Swedish fish later, he's still asking for more. Absolutely, son. You can have a scoop of Rocky Road. I know how much you love Neapolitan ice cream. Sure, how about a little dabble of Ben & Jerry's fish food? A pint of ice cream later, he's asking for more. Absolutely, baby boy. You want some Lucky Charms for breakfast? Who would not want that marshmallow pot of gold on the bottom of the cereal bowl? I understand. 3 bowls later, he wants more rainbows, more charms, more pots of gold, and he's bouncing off the walls because his sugar intake is a hell of a lot more than he should have as a 3-year-old. You give government an inch. Second Amendment rights, no guns in parks, no guns in buildings or community centers. What's the next thing government is going to disallow? From my standpoint, it's a micro and macro issue. Micro, Second Amendment, the right to carry. Macro, where else is this going to go? We'll talk about it tomorrow with Steve Harvey, right here on the I Love CVille Show. He'll make a breaking news announcement of significant proportions while sitting in this chair next to me. 2 other topics, and Alex Urpí, I'm going to you in about 90 seconds. 90 seconds. Put me on the clock right here, Alex. It is now 1:07 and 45 seconds. I watch Jeff Bezos, his brother, and two other people, the oldest person to ever go into space and the youngest person to ever go to space, this morning on this television in our studio on Market Street, blast off into space. And I was saying, oh my God, a billionaire built a space traveling business, had so much confidence in his space traveling business that he got on board the first iteration of his spaceship. He went into outer space. The entire world was watching, mouth agape. He landed safely, and in a press conference that transpired about 35 minutes ago, he was talking to the media with a freaking cowboy hat on. A man starts a business out of his garage, an online retailer, and now he owns a private space traveling company that is going to sell seats to people with the entire value proposition. You get to see outer space and nothing more. And I said to myself, good Lord, if this isn't a post-COVID 2021 world, I don't know what is. Say what you want about Bezos, and many are saying he is the death nail to brick and mortar retail. Many say he skirts tax payments by operating a countrywide and worldwide business not tied to individual state municipalities. Many people say he's sidestep on his significant other. He's squashing the American spirit. And all those perhaps could be true. But today, he's wearing a cowboy hat and an astronaut suit. He traveled faster than the speed of sound. He went into outer space, and he lived to talk about it. That, my friends, our children and generations to come will read about in history books. History. History. Lastly, vaccinations for children 12 and under now expected midwinter. Midwinter for vaccinations, children 12 and under. That, my friends, is a kick in the you-know-where for parents of children 12 and under. We thought it would happen before school started, and it's not. Judah Wickhauer, we have Alex Urpí on the line. He is the CEO of Emergent Financial Services. Alex Urpí is not only a handsome guy, he's a well-spoken guy, he's a brilliant guy, he's a well-manicured guy, he's a well-dressed guy, and he comes from a phenomenal family. Alex Urpí, CEO of Emergent Financial Services. Alex, Jeff Bezos goes into space. He lives to talk about it. He lands safely. A billionaire who built a business out of a garage is now an astronaut. Welcome to 2021, Alex Urpí.
Crazy. It's as someone who loves to see like the space, and when NASA used to send the, I've missed NASA sending the space shuttles and the rockets. I do get excited. I can't help but get excited about it because it really is very interesting, and just like you said, a historical moment. And I also think it is something to be thinking about because I'm a big sci-fi guy. We all know at some point space is the next frontier. I mean, there's so many things out there between the moon, which Nick has written about this for our blog at Emergent Financial Services, just how countries looked at the moon, how countries looked at Mars. There's a lot that goes out there. And so to see private industry get involved in this is just really interesting.
Jeff Bezos' legacy, 25, 50 years from now, how do you characterize it?
Ooh, that's a tough one. It certainly is mixed, but I have to be honest, I think it's really easy, and I have issues with things that Jeff Bezos does and the way Amazon runs their business and treats their employees, right? But I think to some extent, right, the fact that he has become a billionaire off Amazon is in some ways an indictment of us who are his consumers, because that means he provided something that we bought, and we bought in droves. And we made the decision as people to say, well, if it's $2 cheaper with free shipping on Amazon, I'll buy it from there instead of my local store. All right, so that's a conscious decision we made in terms of the existence of Amazon and the legacy of Amazon, if indeed it does wipe out brick and mortar, which I'm not 100% convinced will happen. I think I think people are a little bit waking up in America to the fact that there are repercussions that go beyond the 25 cents I saved on Amazon, that there's repercussions that go beyond that when you're talking about your decision to shop at Amazon versus a local store. So I think that may be shifting, and his legacy, I'm not sure, is totally set yet. I think we know where it may go, but I'm not 100% convinced it's set in stone yet. But in some ways, I mean, we've made that decision, and we, through policymakers last year, made some decisions that boosted Bezos into even more billionaire category and gave him one of his best years ever, while crushing a lot of our local stores. So I think it's really easy for us as consumers to always be like, oh, those big bad Walmarts and Amazons. And I sometimes have to stop myself and sit back and say, well, am I buying from those big bad Amazons and Walmarts that I complain about all the time? And if the answer is yes, then I'm voting with my dollar. And so it's one thing to vote with what we say, and it's another thing to vote with our dollar. So I think there's always something to kind of keep in mind when we talk about his legacy, because in some ways it's also our legacy. Because Bezos, without everybody that shops at Amazon, is just a guy in his garage.
Well said, Alex Urpí. Dude, I didn't even tip him off that I was going to be asking him this topic. He just rattled that off on the fly right now. I'm going to give you another one on the fly here. Bigger monopoly, bigger death nail to the free market. Amazon, Apple, Google, or Facebook, and why?
Ooh. For the free market, I think each of them has their issues. Google maybe more so in the free flow of information, I would say, just because of the monopoly that they have on information and search engines. But I think in terms of the market as a whole, I would say Amazon, if they've monopolized. Just because there's been, I think there was a great article a few years ago on the war that no one talks about between Amazon and Walmart, that Walmart is attempting to basically invade the online retail space, and Amazon, through the purchase of Whole Foods and other things, is attempting to take over what's left of the brick and mortar that Walmart commands. And one or the other of those would have severe repercussions if they become the only. And we see it with Amazon there. I mean, a lot of smaller companies that have been approached with Amazon about their products have begun to complain about monopolistic behavior. I think the big one, was it in the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal? I can't forget which paper. There was a diaper company that Walmart had basically said, hey, we'd love to acquire you. And the company said, no, I think we're doing fine on our own. Amazon basically dropped the price of their diapers that they sell on Amazon.com below this company's price. Because Amazon, of course, makes so much money through other services that they sell that they can afford to basically lose money on diapers for as long as it takes to drive this company into the ground and then acquire them. And so when you begin to see that kind of monopolistic behavior, that's when you get a little nervous, because one of the essences of a free market, of course, is that you have competition. And a market that's called free but really has just one producer is not really a free market, because then they can begin to engage in that kind of behavior. So that worries me on the market standpoint a little bit more so than Google and Facebook, which I think have more to do with an information standpoint.
Alex Urpí, guys, is the CEO of Emergent Financial Services. If you're looking to build your wealth, Emergent Financial Services is the firm for you. So much I want to throw to you here. Stagflation. First, a layman's definition I will throw out of stagflation. Please correct me if I'm wrong. Inflation going quickly, economic growth not keeping pace with inflation, and job hiring staying essentially stagnant, people not filling unemployment or open jobs. The question I have for you is stagflation on the near horizon in this country?
It's a good question. I don't foresee it at this time. And stagflation is basically the one phenomenon that we had of stagflation that was a really major one was if you think about the 70s when we had the malaise and all that, because you had a certain combination, exactly like you said, of inflation, high inflation, but high unemployment. Basically, your inflation is not being pushed up by wages going up. Inflation is running rampant, and wages are basically either stagnant or declining. That's such a rare phenomenon. It's difficult to see it right now, because typically those are going to work in opposite, right? So if you've got really bad economic times where people can't find jobs and you've got a recession, typically prices decline. We saw this in 2008, 2009, right? The Federal Reserve was basically trying to stave off deflation, or prices decreasing because of a recession. So I don't see anything right now that screams stagflation. Could it happen? I mean, if inflation that we're seeing is being driven by something other than supply issues, or if the supply issues don't get resolved. I mean, if we talked about just so much money being poured into the system that inflation cannot be held at bay, and now companies are beginning to lay off workers and not hire people, maybe replace them with robots, but still push up prices, that would be a stagflation type of scenario. But that would require basically things to stay where they are right now and not get fixed. In other words, we're looking at supply side issues in terms of goods being able to get to where they need to get to, and saying, well, nothing can be done to fix that. Just companies cannot find people, and yet somehow people can't find other jobs. Their wages just begin to plummet. And so far, we haven't seen that. We've seen, now inflation has been rising faster than wages. So real wages, meaning what you take home in purchasing power, right? Because if your wages go up 2%, inflation goes up 5%, you go to the store and you sit there and say, I'm still losing money. I got paid more and I still can't afford it, right? So we're seeing real wages have an issue, but nominal wages, meaning the dollar amount you take home, are rising. So we're not looking at a scenario where people are saying, I can't find work and there's inflation. Right now, it's quite the opposite. It's people saying, well, I have so many options, I might think about switching careers. I might take some of the unemployment for a while, and maybe I don't want to work in hospitality or the food sector anymore. Maybe I want to do something else with my life. So the fact that we have a poll, I think, 2 million workers in a recent poll basically said that they're thinking about just taking unemployment and conceivably switching jobs. In other words, I'm going to use this time to change industries. I think that lends me to believe that we're not looking at stagflation yet, because there's a little bit of power with the labor force right now that you don't typically see in a stagflation.
Alex Urpí, guys, our guest, Chief Executive Officer, Emergent Financial Services. Find them online. Do your homework. When you do, you will realize they're the choice for you. Emergent Financial Services. My friends, a lot I want to throw at you quickly. What macro indicator concerns you the most?
For macro, that's a great question, because you always want to look for macro like leading indicators, which are indicators that happen before what you're looking for, right? So if you think of, as a class example of a bad indicator like GDP, right? You're not going to know that you hit a recession until 2 years later, when you go back and look at the revised GDP numbers and say, oh, it was negative 2 years ago and we thought it was positive. So that's the wrong type of indicator. I typically look at, I think inflation is a little bit of one. So that's probably the most concerning one now, right? Because you just keep an eye on it, waiting to see what happens. And I think everyone's looking at that one right now. I've been keeping an eye. We like to also keep an eye at Emergent at where interest rates are going. Right? What is the bond market telling us? Are they panicking? Are they at a divergence from the Federal Reserve? In other words, if the Fed is saying things are great, we want to keep interest rates low, and the bond market's like, no, we're really afraid of inflation, interest rates are skyrocketing, and you get it's called the steepening of the yield curve, where the bond market says, oh, I don't really trust where things are going in 30 years, so those interest rates go up, but the Federal Reserve's like, oh, we want to keep interest rates low now, and you get a steep yield curve, or worse yet, the dangerous inverted yield curve, where the Federal Reserve says we have to jack up rates, but the bond market's saying, everything's going south, right? And we're not seeing those right now. So we're looking at those. I think a lot of the indicators we're seeing are not really negative, other than the inflation one. And that's really the tricky part here, right? We're not seeing stores stocked up with so much inventory that they can't sell it, right? Which would be a classic recession tell, right? Where you've got your retail store is saying, oh goodness, I have all this, all this cereal in the back and nobody's buying and I don't know what to do with it. And now I have to stop ordering. So that would be a classic negative tell. We're not seeing that. I think basically I'm looking at home sales calming down a little and inflation where it is. Is it really going to continue to be at this insane rate that we're looking at? And are we going to continue to spend and keep the spigot flowing regardless of that?
Alex Urpi, our guest, guys, CEO of Emergent Financial Services, co-star of Today y Mañana, Thursday mornings, 10:15 a.m., I Love CVille Network, with the affable, lovable, approachable, and intelligent Xavier Urpi as the other co-star. A lot I want to throw to you. Bubbles. This came up on Real Talk this morning. Keith Smith and Joseph Gentile, who's a National Vice President of Real Estate for Pearl Certification. Gentile, a little bit of a bear. Smith, certainly a bull. Bubble in real estate, finance perspective, your thoughts?
So these are always difficult ones. I think a lot of it depends. And to Keith's point is what you're thinking of with bubble, because I think a lot of times we look at a 10% drop in something, and a lot of people will say bubble. And for me in finance, 10% is just a correction. So we use the word correction whenever there's a 10% decline in the value of certain assets, right? It should be the stock market, right? Which basically is our way of saying it was a little too high and it's come back a little. So I look at real estate and I'm sitting here saying the consumer is going to react, and Xavier has been tweeting about this recently, right? The consumer looks at real estate prices and at some point says, it's a little much for me. I think Keith and Joe were talking about this morning. People look and say, the bidder is like, I'm tired of this. That the constant increase, I got a bit higher. I try to put an offer and it's gone in 2 hours, and I didn't even get to bid much on it. So I think as consumers react, we might see correction. Bubble is very tricky because I think I'm not seeing some of what we saw in 2008, 2009 in terms of people being, 2008 from what I'm remembering, and again, I was in high school following it because my dad was in bonds, so we were following it. But I was remembering a lot of stories of people flipping, like, oh, yeah, I bought this, like average people. I bought my home, I got a mortgage for it, I'm flipping it, I'm making money. I'm not quite seeing people coming to me like, oh yeah, I'm flipping my houses, I have all these mortgages, I have subprime. I'm not quite seeing that here, which leads me to believe that we might not see a total pop of a bubble. What we might see in this case is a correction, which is going to look scary, right? But I think what's true in the stock market is probably also true in real estate, where it goes up like an escalator and comes down like an elevator. So anytime you come down 10% like an elevator, it's going to feel like the elevator is falling all the way to the ground, right? So it's going to be nervous, but it may just be the correction that we're looking for in terms of saying, all right, things went too fast, too quickly, and now people are going to calm down and say, the consumer's going to pull back a little and say, let me wait on this. Let me think about it. Let me take my time. Maybe let me think twice. Do I really want this house? I was willing to put in a bid because I was afraid it would vanish from the market, but everything's vanishing from the market and selling quickly. Do I really want this house? And if people do that, I'm wondering if there won't be a little bit of a pushback, but not necessarily a collapse or a bubble where, because I'm going to be honest with you, a bubble also implies to me as a finance guy that valuations are way out of line with the intrinsic value, with the underlying value. But if indeed demand is there, right? If indeed we're seeing a shift of people wanting to move to certain areas and out of urban areas to more suburban, to places like Charlottesville, to other locales where they're saying, I can, like you said, the Zoom people, right? I can do some work from here. I'd rather live here. If that demand is real, right, then is it really a bubble, right? If the intrinsic value, if the underlying value of a company in a stock market or a home in a real estate market is in fact being accurately represented by prices, then it's not really a bubble. It's just prices are very high. There's a demand and supply.
So you're just basically saying this is a popular area to live.
Yeah, it could well be that. That's what I'm saying. I mean, a bubble implies there's a bid mismatch, right? A bubble would be Apple is selling at 100 times earnings, where you sit there and say Apple earns this much, and basically after 100 years of owning Apple, then I'll get to the price of Apple. That would be a bubble, right? Because you're just so off from the intrinsic value. But sometimes I wonder, and I'm not a real estate guy, but I wonder if you would ask, I'd love to ask Keith, like, do you think that the prices in charge are way off from what these homes are actually worth? Or are they actually worth that because there is demand to come live here?
Alex Urpí, guys, our guest, CEO of Emergent Financial Services. Building permits, an indicator of future construction, fell more than expected to the lowest since August of 2020. Mortgage applications for new construction dropped nearly 24% year over year, and the median price of a newly built home in May was up 18% compared to May 2020. Building permits for new construction in totality coming to a screeching halt. Thoughts?
So that's a classic leading indicator, right? That's something you would see before prices follow.
Alex, more topics I want to get to you. Then I want to throw Today y Mañana at you as well, and what we can expect from your show on Thursday at 10:15 a.m. I had someone reach out to me to pass this to you. He is considering trading on margin trading. And I'm not nearly as smart as you. And I said, dude, folks that are super, super bright, that have been working in finance for decades, get their buns burned trading on margin. You are an attorney, and I don't think you should be using other people's money to do speculative investing. But I promised him that I would pass this topic on to you, Alex Urpí, the expert. I will get out of your way now.
Don't do it. Don't do it. It's margin is the way I see it. If you're sitting on $100 million and you're uber rich, if you're Jeff Bezos, feel free to go trade on margin. If you're anywhere in the average, even if you're a millionaire, don't do it. So for those who do primer on margins, right? You have $1,000. You go to a broker, say, I want to trade on margin. Broker says, all right, let's say you do 30% margin to make it really simple. From your $1,000, I'm going to lend you another $300. So now you can go buy $1,300 worth of stock. But now it gets even better, right? Of your $1,300, I'll lend you another 30%. So now, you can go buy $1,500 worth of stock. Here's the problem, right? As long as the stock's going up and up and up, right? You can just keep borrowing more on margin, and you're making. What you're doing is like the appeal of
bigger
margin,
returns,
right, is on a $1,000 investment of your own money. You're making much more. You're making profit as though you had invested far more than $1,000, and you really only put in $1,000 of your own money. The problem is when it goes in the other direction. Because when your $1,300 investment exactly goes down to $1,200, right? The broker comes back to you and says, well, the margin was 30%. So now you got to put up some more money, because now $1,200, $300 that I lent you isn't 30% of $1,200 anymore. It's less than 30%. So now you got to put up some more money. Well, now your stock declines to $900. Oh, come on, got to put up some more money. So now you have to be giving money, additional funds, to the broker, right? And the problem is you can't sell the stock, right? I mean, you could sell it, but then you'd have to come up with more money. So in other words, if I invest $1,000 in a stock goes down to 900, and I say this is a bad idea, I'm selling, I've lost $100. If I'm on margin and I put up 1,000, went up to, and I invested $1,300 with my loan, my margin loan from the broker, and my value now goes down to 900. I can't just sell that for 900 and say, okay, I'm done. The broker's going to be like, no, where's my 300? You have to put up another 300. You can so easily lose your shirt with margin. And the classic example is the poor unfortunate young man that I think it was last
committed
year
suicide.
that he committed suicide.
He was down $700,000.
Exactly. And poor guy, unfortunately, he didn't actually owe that much. It was less, but it was still a huge amount where he basically looked at this and said, oh my goodness, I owe more to this broker than I can ever possibly pay back. Because I have borrowed. He had a stock that just climbed. He kept borrowing more and more off it. Because let's face it, the margin, the broker wants you to keep increasing margin, right? As your stock, if you buy a stock and it's going up, the broker's like, no, borrow some more. Look how much more you can make, 400%, 500%. Stock price went down a lot, and this poor guy looked at this and said, I'm finished. I owe so much more money than I put into this originally, and he foolishly committed suicide, right? And just don't go down that road. My feeling is that you can make a good return in the stock market. You can set yourself up for retirement. You can even pursue speculative things. You can even go out there and say, hey, I want to take 2% of my portfolio and put it in a risky stock that I believe in, that'll do really well, that I'm really passionate about the stock. You can do all these things and still set yourself up for a good retirement without ever having to go margin. So my recommendation is never do it. It is not worth it, and there's just so much risk. And you would never do it in any other aspect of your life, right?
The only other aspect you would do this in is if you're gambling through a neighborhood bookie.
Exactly.
And you don't want to do that either.
And you don't want to do that either. So it really turns investment into gambling when you're going on margin. And I just can't advise against it strongly enough, because it's so very easy to just, before you know it, lose track of how much you are on margin, how much you really owe, and how much you could lose potentially if it goes south. You never want to put yourself in a position where you are on the hook for more money than you personally have invested in the stock.
Well said. CEO of Emergent Financial Services, trusted name in the game. Emergent Financial Services. My friend, today y mañana on Thursday at 10:15 a.m. What can we expect?
It's going to be a lot of fun. So we're going to first have we're going to have art theme again. We've got Melody Robbins photography.
Oh!
She's a great friend.
She's in the Macklin building.
Yes, she's right. She's your neighbor. She's going to basically walk down the stairs to join us on the show. Great photographer. She's been doing Forward Adelante events for years. She's a class up with Just Louis Passion Award. So we'll talk a little bit about how she makes people look good. Maybe she can give us some tips on if you have a small business owner, you're an entrepreneur, how to think about presenting through images your company. So we'll have that, and then I'm pretty sure we're gonna have a surprise guest on.
Judah.
I will not name, but it'll be fun. Judah, it won't be a surprise. Judah, as always.
Okay.
He'll get the inside scoop, but I think it's gonna be a lot of fun who we bring on Thursday to talk about Charlottesville and the best of Charlottesville.
Oh, okay. Alex Urpí, I cannot wait for this. Alex Urpí is the CEO of Emergent Financial Services. His family business, Emergent Financial Services, trusted, reliable, offer approachability, education, Emergent Financial Services. Their show today y mañana, Thursdays at 10:15 a.m. on the I Love CVille Network. My friend, we will see you on Thursday.
See you then. It's been so much fun. I love the show this morning. Great one.
Thank you. You have a good one, Alex. Thank you.
You too. Best to Judah.
Thank you. Alex Urpí, guys. Dudes, the Urpí family, A+, their firm, Emergent Financial Services, honest, trustworthy. This was a good show. Thank you for saying that, Alex. I appreciate that very much. Steve Harvey tomorrow is going to be pretty awesome. We're going to talk Second Amendment and whether or not the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors are encroaching upon our Second Amendment rights by banning firearms in all government-controlled or owned buildings, community centers, parks. This is really ruffling a lot of feathers in this community. So we're going to get that perspective from Steve Harvey. Steve Harvey is a Board of Supervisors candidate. He ran in 2019, challenged Ann Malik. I'm excited for tomorrow. I'm very excited for Steve on the program tomorrow. If you have any questions, any comments for Steve, put them in the feed, and we will relay it to him personally on the I Love CVille Show. Thank you for joining us on the program. We feature the best of Charlottesville, Virginia on the I Love CVille Network. You guys have a good afternoon. Take care.